A franchise that's gotten pretty popular over the past few years definitely has to be the Monster Hunter franchise. I remember when Monster Hunter games first started coming out on things like the PSP, and I would dabble in them and I thought they were pretty fun, but I never got too hardcore invested in them. But I know the people that did play those games heavily really did get hardcore invested in them, but for whatever reason, it seemed like the franchise could never really get into the upper echelon of game sales. It wasn't until the series started coming to the Nintendo 3DS that I really started to enjoy the Monster Hunter games, because I was able to play them more as the 3DS, of course, was a portable system. And I really enjoyed playing Monster Hunter games on the 3DS. There was one that also released beforehand on the Wii with Monster Hunter Tri, and then you even had one on the Wii U. Now, with Monster Hunter World releasing earlier in 2018, it's actually setting the best sales records for a Monster Hunter game to date. That game released on the PS4 and the Xbox One, and of course Steam. But there was no Nintendo Switch version of the game. Now, Nintendo Switch owners in Japan did get a Monster Hunter game with Monster Hunter Double Cross, but it looked like Capcom was not bringing that game stateside until the Nintendo Switch started selling really well, and they were like, oh damn, we need to bring this stateside. And so now we have Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate releasing for the Nintendo Switch. Now, how does this game fare? Is it a game that's worth checking out, and does it carry on the Monster Hunter pedigree in a proper way? You have to remember, this is essentially a Monster Hunter game that was released on the 3DS, just spruced up for the Nintendo Switch. Well, sit back, relax, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and let's jump into the world of Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate for the Nintendo Switch.
Hey, RGT 85. Hey, Sean.
Oh my God, it's Stevie Richards!
Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate starts out like most Monster Hunter games do. You're a hunter, you're thrust into a little town, and they're like, hey, go kill some monsters for us. And you're like, okay. There's no real story arc here, there's no real story going on within this game. The story is more so just you playing the game and exploring the different worlds and different monsters within Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate. Now, when you start out, you can basically customize your character to your liking, whether it's a visual style or with the different weapons. And the different weapons are one of the best parts of this game, I feel. I'm a sword and shield kind of guy, but there's a bunch of different weapons that you can try out in this game, all of which have strengths and weaknesses. Things like the katana are, very powerful, but they're a bit slow. There's a long sword, there's distance attacks and things like that. There's all sorts of different weapons that you can use, so you can pretty much find something that really suits your style. There's also hunter skills in this game that are applicable to when you pick different weapons and stuff like that. These are basically like your special attacks, and I really like these, as you're able to customize them, upgrade them, and additionally unlock other things within the different trees based on which sort of abilities you choose to play as. So I really like that about the game. They've actually added in some new things from the 3DS version, a couple new different hunter skills that you can access in this game exclusively. Now, one thing about Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate is the monster roster. It has the biggest monster roster to date, and so that really gives you a bunch of variety and stuff. Now remember, this is pretty much a build of the Nintendo 3DS version of Monster Hunter Generations, just with some additional content added in. So if you're a fan of Monster Hunter Generations on the 3DS and you played it for like hundreds and hundreds of hours, there's not going to be all that much new stuff in here. But if this is your first time experiencing Monster Hunter Generations, there's a ton of great stuff in here, and that really adds something to the game for me. Now, one thing that a lot of people were interested in is the graphics of the game, because like I said, this is a 3DS game being upscaled, and surprisingly, Capcom did a pretty good job. It doesn't look nearly as good as Monster Hunter World or anything, but it looks good. The colors are crisp and vibrant, the frame rate is pretty solid, and all of the monsters look very good. The environments are nice, and that's another thing about the game. You're going to be going to all sorts of different environments. You're not just limited to one little section and area. Basically, what ends up happening is when you choose a mission, each mission takes place in a different area. So when you choose a mission, you might go to a very Arctic area where you have to have, heat supplies that pretty much keep you warm, or vice versa. You might go to a desert area where you need things to keep yourself cool. That really adds a different layer of strategy to the game as well, because the environment can potentially be working against you. Now, the main missions in this game, of course, are hunting these giant monsters. There's other things, smaller deviations like hunting smaller monsters, you got to kill X amount, or things like collecting different sorts of plants and things like that. Of course, collecting plants and things like that is an important part of the game, but we'll get into that in a minute. Like I said, the main course here is hunting these monsters, and I absolutely love it. You're basically thrust into an area, you have to find the monster, and then the monster and you battle. And each monster has their own different sort of defense mechanisms and different sort of tells of of when they're going to attack and what sort of attack they're going to do. There's no life bar for these monsters either, so you pretty much have to look at the monster themselves and pick up on little things like when they start foaming at the mouth or when they run away. That's when they're starting to get weak, and when they start to hobble away, that's when you go, hey, now I've got you in my sights, buddy. And then of course you kill the monster, you then go back to the village and reap the rewards, upgrade your weapons, get some cooler stuff, get some new stuff, so on and so forth. You also have a little thing called a Palico, which is essentially a cat that will join you on your adventures, and these are actually very useful. When I was playing the game online with Wood, the Palico actually killed our main opponent that we were trying to kill when Wood got knocked out and I was busy healing, so that was actually pretty funny. It's nice to see that your Palicos really do something in this game. Like I mentioned earlier, there is online stuff. I played with Wood for a little bit. We played for about an hour and a half and tried to really get into the online aspect of the game, and it was a mostly positive experience. You basically do it the same way that you do the single player. Many people consider the single player of the game to sort of be the tutorial for the online portion of the game, because that's where the missions get a bit more difficult. You have bigger monsters, you have more crazier things going on, and for the most part everything was very smooth. Now there is no in-game voice chat, of course, because it's a Nintendo system, so you're really regulated to using things like Discord or Skype or using the in-game chat system. It does work okay, but it is sort of, you know, a nuance. It's like, why can't we just have in-game voice chat? It'll be interesting to see if Capcom adds in-game voice chat in a future update for the game with, of course, Nintendo's online app that's coming out for the Nintendo Switch. But for the most part, the online was a very enjoyable experience for me. Now I say for me because Wood didn't really seem to appreciate this game quite as much as I did. He thought it was fun, but he didn't really understand it, and I think that's going to be sort of a big problem for a lot of people, because hear me out on this. Monster Hunter World brought in a lot of new people, and these new people were used to that style of Monster Hunter World. Monster Hunter World has things like a story and a pretty in-depth tutorial system, whereas Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate doesn't. They pretty much just thrust you in the game. Sure, there's some training missions you can do, but if you're not familiar with the Monster Hunter franchise, there is a steep learning curve. It's always been like that, though, in every Monster Hunter game except for Monster Hunter World. That's sort of what keeps people away from the Monster Hunter games, in my opinion. It takes you a little while to get used to things. It takes you a little while to realize, oh, I need to use a whetstone when my blade gets damaged, or I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to look out for this, oh, I can do this, I can jump off of this area and get on the back of a monster and start stabbing him to death. The game doesn't hold your hand in any way, shape, or form, and that could definitely be a turnoff to some people when it comes to this game, because there's a lot of stuff going on within this game, between item management, between inventory management, between trying out different weapons, trying out different combinations, trying out different things you can acquire, and of course using all this stuff with your Palico as well, who has their own weapon set and their own armor set and their own skill set. It could be very daunting and a bit over the top when it comes to how much content is in the game. There's a lot of great content in the game. It's just whether or not you are willing to invest some time in order to unearth this content. There's a few more minor things that I didn't like about Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate, but these are more so based on the fact that this was a 3DS game originally. The online, like I said, is very smooth and very fun, but actually getting into an online match can be a bit tricky. You can basically do different types of rooms, friend rooms, anyone can come in, whatever, etc. You can put a lock on the room as well that has a passcode as well, so that's pretty cool how you can dictate who comes into your room or not. Now, once you're actually in the area and you're about to set off on a mission, one person has to pick a mission, the other person that's playing with you has to go over to the mission board and then select that same mission, which is kind of a pain in the ass, especially if there's no voice chat and you're playing with up to 3 other people, because you can have 4 people in the room. So if I pick the mission and I decide to go off and the other person who I'm playing with or other people don't go over to the mission board, accept the mission, and then go over to the area to enter the mission before I go into the area to enter the mission, as I'm the one who entered the mission, then it's like, what? That's so confusing just even saying it, and it's sort of a pain in the ass to deal with. It would have been nice where if the host of the room picked the mission, everyone all of a sudden was just involved with the mission, and when the host goes to the mission area and decides to start the mission, everyone else follows suit. Another thing is the controls of the game. The controls definitely take a little bit to get used to. You could definitely tell that this was a 3DS game that was ported to the Nintendo Switch with not a whole lot of revisions done to it, because the controls definitely feel a bit stiff at first. I ended up getting used to it, but I know a lot of people are probably going to be like, I don't really like these controls quite as much much as I thought I would. It's not a huge deal, and it's really just down to personal preference, but I do think some people will be maybe a bit turned off by the controls just because they feel a tad sluggish at times. But honestly, I really enjoyed Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate. It's a game I'm going to be playing for a long time, as I'm nowhere near completing the game because there's so many different missions, there's so many different monsters to take down, and they're all unique monsters. They all have different tells, they all have different sorts of AI and different moves and different things you have to do, and it just makes the game so much fun. It's a lot of fun to get up with a group of friends, get on Skype, get on Discord, and chat as you're playing this game. I think fans of Monster Hunter World who first started with Monster Hunter World will have a bit of a tough time getting into this game because it's a little bit different than that. It's definitely more for the hardcore Monster Hunter fans, but I think it's definitely something that you guys should check out because, like I said, I'm really enjoying this game, and I really hope that Capcom takes the next step and builds a Monster Hunter game for the Switch from the ground up, not just taking a previous version or taking the 3DS version and putting a new coat of paint, some new features into it, and then releasing it on the Switch. I would like to see a Monster Hunter game built for the Switch from the ground up, and I think if this game does well, then that's what we'll end up getting. But yes, if you're a fan of previous Monster Hunter games, this is definitely an ultimate Monster Hunter game with more monsters than ever, more abilities than ever, and more customization than ever. You're going to have a lot of fun playing this game and probably sink a lot of time in this game. Monster Hunter World fans, though, you'll probably have a little bit of trouble getting into it, but trust me, stick with it, and I think you guys will really enjoy the game. So, those are my thoughts on Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate for the Nintendo Switch. Let me know in the comments section down below if you plan on picking up this game, or if you've already pre-ordered it, and of course, thank you for checking out this video. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications, and I will catch you guys on the next review. Later.